It's the weekend and I'm very excited that the work week is over. It's the start of Super Rugby Week 9 today. The first game is actually starting in just a few moments. I have Garen and Rob joining me in studio. Guys, what are your predictions for this first game?
Hi Jen, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good, not too bad, thanks. So there are 3 games from a South African point of view this weekend in Week 9, as you said. The first game is the Bulls away against the Highlanders. It's the second game on their tour. They lost their first game to the Hurricanes last week. Now they're in Dunedin against the Highlanders. We've also had a bit of a mixed match season so far to date. Again, it's going to be a tough game, as most of the tour games have been so far for the South African teams. They've lost all 9 that they've played to date. And sadly, I don't see this one going any different. I think it'll be close. I think the Bulls do have a chance of winning. They've picked up some injuries in the last game. They lost 2 players that went home after just the first match. I think crucially for them, their fly-half, Jacques-Louis Potgieter, has passed a fitness test. So he could be the key. I think if he had been ruled out as well, I would have no hesitation in predicting that the Bulls would lose comfortably. But the fact that he is there, I think it's going to be a bit closer. I think the Highlanders perhaps by 3 or 4 points,
okay.
But getting off to a bad start for a South African point of view, unfortunately, in Week 9.
I don't know why I'm always surprised every single week. It's like, oh no, it's so bad. I should just brace for it next week. Rob, do you take the same stance?
Jen, I do pretty much. I think it'll be very tight. I think in my written preview, I've gone for Highlanders by 2 points. I think it could be a very, very close game. I did make the point that I do think, and I think Garen probably also suspects this, that the Bulls, if they play well, can actually win this game. The Highlanders don't have a marvellous home record, unlike a lot of the other New Zealand teams who just continuously knock over South African sides on their own soil. The Highlanders are the one team who do struggle a little bit to consistently beat South African teams at home. So the Bulls will look at that and think, well, you know, we're in with a big shout here. My big concern is that with their injury situation, I don't think they've urgently enough addressed the issue of an open side flank. I think that with Dion Stegman going home injured, that was a very bad blow for them. And they've put Jono Ross back on the open side, I see, Garen, which is, he is essentially sort of a makeshift player there. With all due respect to him, he's a good player, especially as a number 8. But playing at number 6 is difficult, and it could just be an area where the Highlanders, they've got a very informed open sider by the name of Shane Christie, who has been working very hard. His stats are pretty good in Super Rugby this year, so that sort of almost helps to sway things a little bit more. So I'm just inclined to say Highlanders, but I also wouldn't be a bit surprised if the Bulls did win.
All right, so that game is at 9:30 today, so we won't have to wait long to find out if you guys are right.
No, absolutely.
All right, well, why don't you take us through game 2?
Okay, the second game is Saturday, 5:05 kickoff. It's the Cheetahs at home against the Crusaders. Now, for me, this was one of the tougher games to pick this weekend. You know, last weekend the Cheetahs were fantastic in the first half. They opened up a 34-10 lead against the Chiefs, but then they were hanging on for dear life at the end to record a 43-all draw. Whereas the Crusaders, they were fairly average, I think, in the first half. It was only 6-0, fairly ugly first half. But then they ran away with things against the Lions. But again, the Lions aren't the best team that they'll certainly play in this tournament. The Cheetahs will be tougher in Bloemfontein. I expect the Cheetahs to have learned from last week. Perhaps like they're hopefully a bit fitter, don't run out of puff after 70 minutes like they did. But the Crusaders are a formidable team, Rob. I see they've got Kieran Reid back, which is massive for them. He's, I think, one of the 3 best players in the world, and they all seem to be New Zealanders and in the Crusaders team. Dan Carter, Richie McCaw, both out, but Kieran Reid is back. It'll certainly boost them. I think when they departed for their tour of South Africa and they saw they were playing the Lions and the Cheetahs, they would have earmarked 10 points from those 2 games. It's certainly the easiest 2 I think they could ever have wished for. So I'm leaning towards the Crusaders. I think the Cheetahs will be better. I think it will certainly be a close game, but I'm going for the Crusaders. The experience, they're going to grind out a victory. They might not even pick up the bonus point for scoring 4 tries. Crusaders by 5. That's my prediction.
All right, Rob.
Yeah, I'm going Crusaders by between 5 and 7 points, perhaps. The Cheetahs perhaps will get they might even get 4 tries while conceding 6 or something like that. Not out of the question. I just think that the Crusaders are a smart side. They're not necessarily playing the best rugby this season, but they are a smart side. They will certainly believe that they can win in Bloemfontein. They'll be very wary of a sort of a really runaway start by the Cheetahs, having watched what happened against the Chiefs last week. So they'll be on their guard early on. But the other thing that I think works in their favour is that later on in the game, it is just possible, I think, that the the Crusaders might be the team that actually still has a bit more gas in the tank after the Cheetahs had a real sort of, lung stopper last week, in a match where 86 points were shared. So they might actually, if anything, be a little bit footsore.
All right, and the third game?
Okay, the third and final game is 7:10 on Saturday evening. It's at Ellis Park in Johannesburg. You've got the Lions up against the Sharks. So the good news is, barring the draw, there will be a South African winner, which is good news, because I think it's going to be the only game we're going to win this weekend. Again, on paper, the Sharks should walk away fairly comfortable winners. They were off last week, but their position at the top wasn't under any threat. All the other South African teams that we spoke about earlier in the week lost pretty much or drew. So they're still at the top. The Lions now face a period of some really, really tough matches. They've got the Sharks, they await the Stormers, and then they go on their overseas tour. I see them losing all 6 of those matches, to be honest. So the Sharks, they're unchanged from the last time that they played. Continuity is key. The Lions have made a couple of changes. I think Jake White will just be a little bit too smart for the way he'll set the team up, the game plan that he would have implemented. I see the Sharks being fairly comfortable winners. If it really does get ugly for the Lions, it could be as much as like 15 points. But I think because the South African teams tend to know each other really well and how they play, the matches are fairly ugly to watch, unfortunately, but they tend to be fairly close. But I'm going for the Sharks by at least 10 points.
I feel pretty confident about the Sharks winning. They did beat the Lions in the first round game in Durban. I think they got the bonus point in the 79th minute or something. They scored the 4th try then. I have a feeling that on the Highveld, on a hard surface, apparently the weather looks pretty promising for Johannesburg. So the possibility that the game might open up a little bit, even though South African derbies often tend to be very attritional. But I do think that the Sharks are capable of winning, possibly even with a bonus point, which will leave them in a really good space at the top of the log, because they'll presumably have opened up their lead even further, and that'll be quite a nice sort of fillip for them with about 2 games to go still, I think, Aaron, before they go on their overseas leg. So if they get past this hurdle, they've then got 2 more home games in Durban against the Cheetahs and the Highlanders before they go on to it. And I think that the Sharks will be targeting wins in all 3 of those games. They'll certainly believe that it's possible, and I do think Saturday the Lions won't be strong enough on paper to really get in their way.
So why don't you let everyone watching know how they can share their photos from the games and catch up on live updates?
Right, Jen. Well, the easiest way is, we'll be doing our live updates for all the South African games, starting with the Bulls Highlanders. So be sure to log on to sport24.co.za to follow us there. And then if you're going to the games in Bloemfontein or Johannesburg, please send us your pictures. We'll include them in the gallery. So yeah, it's definitely the way to get hold of us.